G'day, my name's Connor Fitzgerald. I'm 35 and I've been around these understandings as put forward by Australian biologist Jeremy Griffith for about 10 or 10 or 11 years or something, just over a decade. Today just want to have a chat about what this information means for the world, obviously, but also just sort of talk a bit about personally sort of how this information's impacted my life and hopefully, portray just what that means to me and maybe that'll sort of help people watching or whatever. I just wanted to start with this quote. I just absolutely love this quote. People that are maybe watching this video online or something, wondering what the WTM, World Transformation Movement's about, that's it. That's basically the end goal here, and there's a lot of content on the website that you can look up about the understandings that Jeremy's put forward. This particular talk that I'm going to try and do today anyway is about the transformation process, which is how you go from living a totally sort of preoccupied, shut down, deeply sort of numb state to a transformed, preoccupation-free state, effectively free of the human condition. So it's pretty exciting. I've got a few things to talk about. It might be a bit of a dog's breakfast, but we'll see how it goes. So the problem, I just want to emphasise, there's a lot of stuff on the web. There's a lot of content on the website. Have a look at it. It's very, very good. So I'll just be sort of chopping around a bit, so see how it all goes. Sir James Darling, back in a speech in 1950, said, "Selfishness is, as it has ever been, the ultimately destructive force in a society, and there are only two cures for selfishness: the regimented state, which we all profess to dislike, and the change of heart, which we refuse to make. That is the choice, believe me, for each one of us, and we have not much time in which to make it. The need for decision to have a change of heart and live selflessly is serious and urgent, and the sands of time are running out." So that's just a good sort of summation of the situation in the world at the moment. And Jeremy talks a lot about how it's been an inability to be selfless up until now, which is a fairly major handbrake on humanity eventually rehabilitating. And you don't have to go far to see, just the madness that's out there. Look on the news, turn on the telly. It's all pretty awful, and it's been humans' inability to live selflessly in a sort of a universal context. That's been the problem. And what's so amazing about this information and this transformation process is it does allow us to live selflessly, and that's what's so incredible. So the other thing, I suppose, just a little bit about myself. I've, as I say, been around these understandings sort of about 10 years, and I first came across them through a very good friend of mine, Will Salter, and we would drive around and he'd sort of talk to me about this information, and it was just incredible because this information, particularly when you first come across it, it's just amazing. It explains absolutely everything about us, men and women, religion, all the topics that are just seemingly inexplicable are explained by this. And, what is love, what's our soul, how do we become conscious, all of this stuff. So it's incredibly exciting. When you first come across it, you just go, it's just, like Weavy said, it's just like being drunk on knowledge. It's the most amazing, all of a sudden, there's all these things that you didn't know and you can explain, and it's really amazing. So I suppose, the thing so I'll give you a very quick snapshot of my journey with this information, and then maybe just go back and flesh a few things out. So I come across the information. It's amazing. It stacks up. It makes a lot of sense. there's a whole bunch of stuff which you sort of don't realise at the time, which is this resigned strategy that we developed when we were, when we were in our teenage years. And this strategy is something that when you come across this information, the two are sort of completely at odds. So you enter what's called the Mexican standoff, which has been talked about before. But eventually there comes a point on the journey with this information where you can see through your strategy enough, realise enough's enough, and put your strategy aside and just live the way this information says you actually can. Then the real truthful world opens up. It's all about honesty, about our corrupted selves, but this information also loves and explains us like our strategies never could. Letting the information take care of my resigned, upset self is the most therapeutic, natural, rational thing to do. So that's really what this is all about. But just by way of a bit more sort of context, Mon, do you reckon you can throw that? Yeah. So this is just a sort of a. You've probably heard in other videos and seen on the website. There's a lot of talk about resignation. This is pretty important because it's the most significant psychological event in anyone's life, and yet up until 1983, when Jeremy first started writing about the human condition, it went completely unacknowledged, and that's the problem. It's the silence of the adult world to children, which makes it incredibly difficult and incredibly confusing, and children blame themselves, and that's sort of where the psychosis that we develop. That's where it starts, and this is a sort of a good picture tells 1,000 words. That's sort of what it's like. I've tried to sort of I can't really connect with what it was like, sort of day to day during the teenage years, but I certainly found it a very confusing and disorientating time. As I say, I can't remember exactly what went on in my head, but I do remember becoming increasingly distressed and estranged from myself and everyone around me. And it's just the most sort of distressing, confusing, sort of maddening situation. However, I can now understand that I was struggling, basically what was happening at that time, that I was struggling mightily with trying to reconcile all the imperfections and wrongness and imperfections in myself with all my natural childhood expectations of a peaceful, happy world. The bottom line was life just wasn't turning out like it was supposed to. I certainly wasn't peaceful and happy. I was becoming increasingly selfish and angry, and basically trying to reconcile my reality with ideality. And with no explanation at my disposal at that time, I had no choice but to resign myself to a life of denial of the human condition, and consequently take up a strategy to make myself feel good, prove my self-worth, and we all take this up. Everyone's sort of got their different sort of colour of it. In my case, I sort of just be a nice guy, be a good person, save the environment. I had I got a massive pride in my intellect, ability to think, so I sort of cranked that up, and I'll just at this point I'll just read out a little bit. And this is what I was sort of saying earlier, where having a strategy and having a strategy which is based on sort of misreadings and misunderstandings, and then coming across the whole truth about humans, which is completely truthful, and it's all honesty. That's where it can be a bit sort of turbulent, particularly in my journey. Having a born-again nice guy strategy has added a layer of fog that I've always struggled with massively, because this information just absolutely smashes that to pieces. And of course I then try harder to be nicer, which doesn't work, and the whole thing gets into a vicious cycle, and I get stuck. So that was sort of, so that's, anyway, the point is, it doesn't, we've all got strategies, we all develop, we all have to develop something in light of not having any understanding when we were little, and yeah, that was just you know, my particular one. In terms of there's a good quote that Jeremy refers to in one of the earlier chapters of Freedom by a Danish philosopher called Søren Kierkegaard, and he says, "There is not a single adult human being who does not despair at least a little, in whose innermost being there doesn't dwell an uneasiness, an unquiet, a discordance, an anxiety in the face of an unknown something, or a something he doesn't even dare strike up acquaintance with. He goes about with a sickness, goes about weighed down with a sickness of the spirit, which only now and then reveals its presence within in glimpses, and with what is for him an inexplicable anxiety." So that's just the sort of, that's the background to sort of which you know, Jeremy talks a lot about, and but maybe can we put the there's, I guess what I'm trying to say, it's all a bit heavy, but the beauty of this information and is that the whole human story is explained, and I just absolutely love this picture, because this is the whole human story from start to finish. This is any of your particular stories from start to finish. This is my story from start to finish, and so the reason that's so wonderful is because there's a reason for all of these stages. There's context. We've never had the full truth about humans from start to finish. So naturally, we're sort of, you know, but this is it. Like, this is. I'll talk a bit more about that chart in a minute. So the best part is that and as Dougie said in his affirmation, you just don't have to worry about that stuff. This information will take care of it. You hang in there, and eventually you reach a stage, which we all have, where you just get sort of enough's enough of your strategy, and you see it for what it is. And for me particularly, it just felt really key. Being able to sort of blow the lid on my resigned, upset state and the strategy that I was using to cope with that. And once I was able to see that, it was quite incredible, because it was like, so I've got this strategy that I developed from when I was a kid, and it's been with me the whole time, and it's, you know, it was necessary and it kept me safe and all these things. But then you come into contact with this information, which is this whole truthful story about humans, and it makes our strategies transparent, and it makes us feel very uncomfortable about the way we're sort of promenading and posturing and trying to just all that I was doing from resignation onwards was just make myself feel good, whatever that was, the way I dressed, the way everything, the way I talked, the you know, be smart, be good, whatever it was. It was just all about me trying to make myself feel better about myself, because you know, again, when I was a kid, I didn't have any understandings, and in a world without that, you adopt a psychosis and away you go. But so anyway, then this information comes along, and there's a bit of an upheaval, but the beauty is that it's at some point you do realise that I don't need to use my strategy to cope with that pain and upset and hurt anymore. I just don't, because this information, which I happen to have been supporting for a long time, completely explains that. It's got that totally covered, and yeah, it was just the most sort of like seeing your strategy, actually seeing what's been driving me all this time, getting some transparency on that sort of that resigned madness, and I mean, it's context and all that, but it does get to a point like where we do have to have a change of heart. You know, I mean, that's the problem. We haven't been able to have a change of heart up until now, and sort of now we can. And then letting the information, letting this truthful framework, which is just amazing, to completely cover it. So I don't have to be preoccupied with my pain, with my hurt, with my upset anymore. because this information has got it completely covered. And Tony Gowing actually wrote a really good, it's on the web in one of the blogs. This is the feeling, because it is such a relieving change. You are going from a negative to a massive positive, and it's just so relieving to not have to pretend all the time, or worry about, try and just, I'm not that. It's just, there's so much time and energy that goes in, and preoccupation that just goes into that, trying to prove to yourself and everyone else that you're a good person. And this information actually does it, and it's actually logical and it makes sense. So it's completely legitimate to allow the information to just cover all that stuff that you've been going on with. And that's the relief. You just don't have to be, I just don't have to worry about that ever again. I just don't have to worry about the fact that, of course, I'm still an upset person, yes, but the fact that I'm upset's not the problem. It was the preoccupation with the upset that was the issue, and now I just don't have to worry about it because of this, because of the logic, and yes, it's just the most sort of, it's life-changing sort of transformation, because I literally went from totally preoccupied, and I was so preoccupied I didn't even know I was preoccupied, and to just all, it sort of, the whole thing opens up. It's sort of like you can breathe again or something. But so Tony just wrote this, which I really like. This is my best attempt at explaining it. It's like winning the World Cup after scoring the winning points right on the final buzzer. It's like falling into the deepest and most enthralling first love imaginable. It's like being 8 years old again and being an hour or two into a fully fledged adventure to catch frogs in your local creek with your best mate. It's like coming home after some massive natural disaster and finding all your family alive and well. It's like being drunk for the first time in your life, and your favourite song comes on and you dance with the most carefree and excited freedom that you've ever felt. It's like waking up from that dream where everything has gone completely and utterly wrong, and finding out that none of it has actually happened and everything is okay. Yes, it's like all of those tiny moments in your life combined. And so, I mean, the point is, I'm not free of upset. I'm still a massively upset person. I just don't have to worry about covering that, because the honesty that this information does. And I just, that's just what's so good. So I was just going to read out. This is just something I wrote a little while ago. Now that the human condition is solved and human upset has been totally explained and exonerated, the truth is that I'm still massively upset, but I'm good, which means I don't have to pretend and delude myself that I'm not. This is very relieving and honest and real, and it's the truth anyway. Everything else has just been resigned falseness to survive, which is incredibly heroic but now totally useless. All that has happened is that I've seen my upset state for what it is and totally let the information deal with all of it. That's the thing about this transformation, just the realness of it. You sort of think, certainly you sort of think, you can be sceptical and think, well, that, you sure about all that? And you're saying those things, but the amazing thing is that it is real, because this information's true, and because, I mean, I've tested it and I've applied it to my life, and it's completely made sense of everything that I'm about and everyone else that I know is about, and everything else that I see in the world. And it's so this sort of transformation process, it is just the logical, rational, sort of natural way that that humanity can go from living selfishly to selflessly, and that's why it's incredible, because the human condition is a universal problem, and this transformation is also the universal solution, because it means that every single person, regardless of race, creed, colour, is this applies to you, you know, this applies to everyone. And therefore this amazing transformed state that is on offer now is also available for everyone. And that means the world, and that means a world which can start to rehabilitate from the god-awful stuff that's going on at the moment. I'd just like to read a little bit, just a couple of things. One's from, this is Jeremy's latest work, Freedom, and it's chapter 9, and it's just a really good summation of what's going on, of this transformation process, I should say. Yes, we can all now know that our insecure, egocentric need to validate ourselves through winning power, fame, fortune and glory is obsoleted. We can understand that it is no longer necessary to prove that we are good and not bad through demonstrations of our worth, because our goodness has now been established at the most fundamental level through first principle-based biological explanation. We can know that with the arrival of understanding of the human condition, our whole competitive, self-preoccupied, selfish, must-win, power, fame, fortune and glory way of living has been made redundant. In fact, the fundamental situation we are now in is that the resigned competitive way of living has become pointless, meaningless, because it doesn't progress the human race to greater knowledge as it once did, because the key piece of knowledge that we needed to find of understanding of the human condition has been found. Furthermore, living out that self-preoccupied, competitive, selfish existence is now unnecessarily destructive of our relationships with our fellow humans and of our world in general. We can now know that the resigned, egocentric, competitive, selfish and aggressive way of living is finished with, which means we can, and in fact should, simply cast aside that way of living and take up in its place a new way of living that is available to humans now, where we live in support of a reconciled, non-competitive, selfless, loving existence. And most wonderfully, what happens when we give up our old way of living and take up the new way of living, the understanding of the human condition has made possible, is we become transformed from a competitive and selfishly behaved human to a cooperative and selflessly behaved one. Yes, even though we are not yet free of the upset state of our own personal human condition, we can immediately have a change of attitude and decide not to live out that upset state that remains within us. The overall effect in our lives is that despite our retention of the upset state of the human condition, we are effectively free from its hold and its influence, which is an absolutely fabulous transformation to have made in an instant, in one simple decision. And I just really like, Jeremy talks a lot about Australia. He refers to Australia quite a bit in his books, and Jeremy grew up in Australia, and this is just a really nice, really good poem called The Song of the Future. It's by Banjo Patterson, and I'll just include throughout the reading of this poem, Jeremy's got some explanations. So yeah, anyway, here goes. "'Tis strange that in a land, Australia, so strong and bold in mighty youth, innocence, we have, in 1889, no poet's voice of truth to sing for us a wondrous song, explain the human condition. However, we yet may find achievements grand within the bushman's quiet life. Lift ye your faces to the sky, ye far blue mountains of the west, 'tis hard to feel that years went by before the pioneers broke through your rocky heights and walls of stone and made your secrets all their own, broke through the wall of denial blocking access to the truth about the human condition. For years the fertile western plains were hidden behind your sullen, that is alienated, walls, your cliffs and crags and waterfalls. Between the mountains and the sea, like Israelites with staff in hand, the people waited restlessly. They looked towards the mountains old and saw the sunsets come and go, with gorgeous golden afterglow, that made the west a fairyland, and marvelled what that west might be, of which such wondrous tales were told. At length the hardy pioneers by rock and crag found out the way, and woke with voices of today, a silence kept for years and years, brought an end to the silence of the resigned world of denial. The way is one, the way is one, and straight away from the barren coast there came a westward marching host that aye and ever onward press with eager faces to the west along the pathway of the sun. Could braver histories unfold than this butch story yet untold, the story of their westward march, liberation from the human condition? And it may be that we who live in this new land apart, beyond the hard old world, grown fierce and fond and bound by precedent and bond, bound up in sophisticated intellectual denial, may read the riddle of the human condition right, synthesising liberating truth from science's hard-won insights into our world, and give new hope to those who dimly see, those who are embedded in blind denial/alienation, that all things may be yet for good, and teach the world at length to be one vast united brotherhood. And that's it.
Yeah, like the boy said, it's so amazing that we don't have to live through those strategies anymore. You can just let it all go. Like Con says, you just let the information take care of that. Because we've spent since resigning, we've spent our whole time preoccupied with that strategy and keeping everything in place with it. And it's 100% preoccupation every day, every minute, every second. And that's where the relief and the time thing comes into it, because all of a sudden you let it go and you go, oh, God, that's what I was doing the whole time, And all of a sudden you have all this time in your hands and you have all this sort of mental space, and it's amazing. Yeah, there's freedom from this bloody thing. And it's incredible, yeah. And it always blows my mind that, holy cow, we can just let that go, We don't have to face it down, we don't have to deal with it, we don't have to go through it. We don't have to confront it, we don't have to spend years trying to pick through it and explain it all. You can just, as one big bundle, just let it go and move away from it. And the freedom and excitement, what you guys are saying from that, is just incredible.
And just how legitimate that is too, to do. It's not, that's what, I wanted to say that at the end, this is such a legitimate change. It's just so far from a dogma-based or leap of faith or anything. It's nothing to do with any of that, because it's all based on, it's all based on understanding. It's all based on this incredible story of the human story, our story, why we behave the way we do, sort of how we got here, if you like. That's what's so incredible. Like it is actually, it's just 100% real. And the old way of living, coping with life, whatever, that is now, like you said, that is now the redundant sort of done its job, It's
It was unreal.
Yeah, which now becomes unreal. That's actually not real. That way of behaving, in light of this whole truthful framework that's laid out for us, that way of behaving is now an unreality sort of thing. And that's what I just love about it. It's just the realness of it. And like that's like one thing that Shorey talks a lot about, that just the logic of it does explain us. That's not a throwaway line. It does, and everyone's. I just love how Jeremy says too. This is just the change that any species would have had to go through from an instinct control state to an intellect control state. This same wrestle, if you like, until we found the full story about it. There was this, horrific sort of battle, and the psychosis and neurosis that resulted from that. But so it's just an adjustment sort of thing. It's all fine. Everything's fine. There's nothing's out of place. Yeah, like just how everything's got a place. Like this is a 12-year-old, just thinking just so deeply in light of not having any understanding, and the world around him is crazy, and he doesn't, so he just retreats, and that's the beginning of the end for that little fella, and this is, but like Jeremy's saying too, this is us as a species, and we had to do that, and then like there's that thing, had to march into hell for a heavenly cause, and adolescence, a dying world of ever increasing and accumulating anger, egocentricity, and alienation, and that's certainly my adolescence and humanity's adolescence, and then just booyah up in the hill. But that's what's so good about it, that it is just underpinned by all that. You know, like Nico said, if you know, the resigned, upset state or world wants to debate this, well, it can go crazy doing that. You know, it can go crazy doing that. It's because it's all just it's just gonna, you know, doesn't hold any sway because of this, and so it is just an sort of an adjustment period, I suppose, for the world, for, you know, for us, and yeah, and it's sort of just like once human conditions explained, done, you know, it's just a numbers game then. It's just maths sort of thing, where you know, time and sort of just
like Jeremy says in I think it's in chapter 9, humans are ultimately rational creatures, and when the rationale is that the human condition's been explained, I can't remember exactly, but humans will go that way, and that is the new situation. It's just the size of the change, the paradigm, that's hard to get your head around. And it takes adjustment, but it sort of encapsulates just this strength, and the strength of the underpinning of the whole thing, of logic, is what Nico kept coming back to. The whole game has just fundamentally changed for all of humanity, fundamentally at its deepest level. So you just can't get a more solid base to come off, and to think that just this incredible, wonderful positives are opened up because of that fundamental change. It's just too much to believe. It's just too good to be true, sort of thing. But it is true. So we've just got this banquet of positives waiting for us to just adjust to.
negative to positive, like Shuri talked about. Once over the shock of change.
Yeah.
Good summary.
Yeah, we've already done the hard bit.
Yeah. That's right. This is all done, and now we're here.